Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Untapped Podcast. My name is Jacob Gabel.
And my name is Jacob Wurtz. Guys, welcome to episode 160 of the Untapped Podcast. If this is your first time joining us, first of all, thank you. We are thrilled to have you here with us. We actually have 5 main formats of our show. So first, we have Forging Fortitude episodes. Now, in these episodes, we cover the mental side of our brand. So in these ones, we go over our anecdotal experiences with things like mindset and mentality. We then pass on tips and advice to you guys to then apply to your own lives. Next, we have Physical Vitality episodes. Now, in these ones, we really get to showcase our expertise because you have 2 certified personal trainers here. Now, in these ones, we cover everything to do with what we offer with Untapped Training. So if you have any questions about what we offer through our fully custom Untapped Training app, please reach out and we will find a way to help you get the results that you want to. Now, we also talk about everything to do with the gym, nutrition, diet, workouts, mental toughness programs like 75 Hard, supplements, and then sometimes we will also take trending articles or topics within the fitness industry and give our thoughts and opinions on those. Now, guys, these Physical Vitality episodes are full of free game, and we really can't stress that enough because you're not going to find that in a lot of places. So make sure you pay attention.
160, bro. Let's do it.
160.
We're moving right along as usual.
Yes.
All right, guys, on to our third format. That is our breaking news format. It is a current event-based format, similar to the Physical Vitality episodes where we talk about current events, current articles going on in today's world, but obviously they are more world events, politics-related type of topics. And culture, of course, too. Yeah, absolutely. Good call there. And the thing is about those guys, we're not going to doom and gloom and make those our entire personality. We love having these. Our episode today is a breaking news episode. But a lot of times what can happen with the breaking news episodes is, or I should say current event episodes in general around the podcast space, they can turn into like the sad, really hopeless type of style. We're bringing you the direction that we want to head and the solutions to our current state of the country, especially United States. Now, on to our fourth format. That is our Knights Table format. It is a masculinity-based format. We sit down and touch on things like toxic masculinity, if it's real, what it really is, fatherhood, the impact it's had on our lives, and male-based topics in general and how important men are to the future of this country, but also the world. Now, keep in mind, I'm 26, Wurtz is 26, our producer Mitch is 24. Because of that reason, we are not coming to you as some all put together perfect man. The only perfect man to ever walk this earth is Jesus Christ. Now, on to our fifth format this time. That's our guest format. We sit down with entrepreneurs, fitness professionals, athletes, doctors, somebody with a great story, basically anybody who is going to bring you value. We're going to learn a lot from these episodes, so naturally you guys are also going to learn a lot from these episodes as well. Our last thing to introduce is our producer, but also my brother, Mitchell Gabel.
Hello.
What's going on, dude?
What's going on, pal?
Looking big in that shirt.
Thanks.
That shirt is kind of a swole shirt for him, for sure. Yeah,
a little Henley action.
It's actually those oil injections that like people were going
funny.
around.
That's dangerous stuff too.
You should pop the top button there for us.
Trying to encourage that a little bit. He actually was out gas tanking me last night too, man. I was a little bit of huff and puffing on it. We went for like a light little jog, and I'm like, okay, my cardio needs some work.
Yeah.
That's why I've been doing cardio more these last few weeks now, and that's why I encourage we do the assault bike of the S2 stuff. So before we even get into the episode, of course, we want to talk about all this.
We will get into that. Yeah. So last weekend, so not this past weekend when you guys are hearing this on Memorial Day. So actually, first of all, happy Memorial Day. So last weekend, we had the opportunity to be at the first ever S2 Expo at the S2 HQ in Fenton, Missouri. And oh my gosh, what a hell of an event.
Yep.
I mean, awesome.
Probably the best fitness-only event I've ever been to.
Absolutely.
So. Yeah, because I've been to Summer Smash, but I don't count that as a fitness event. I count it as like this cool celebration.
Party celebration, yeah.
But this was a fitness-only, vendors. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, dude.
Unbelievable.
And it
time.
was, as usual, we got great treatment from S2. We had the opportunity to do some really, really cool things outside of the expo, but on the same day, I guess a part of it. So we can't thank you guys at S2 enough. We obviously talk about them all the time, and we try to send as many people to the stores as we can, and that's for good reason. We believe in the store, we believe in the mission, believe in the products, and we certainly believe in the culture that the stores and the staff give out. But we got to have some really cool conversations Got to meet some great people, reconnect with some great people as well. Because of that, we actually have some very exciting stuff coming up for the podcast. So be on the lookout for that for sure. Getting some things scheduled. But you mentioned too, we got Summer Smash coming up here in just a couple weeks. My first time going. Can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 10-year anniversary of Summer Smash 2. We just got the schedule out.
Got the itinerary and everything. Looks unbelievable.
Literally, I'm so excited. So excited.
Yeah. Which again, like shows you, because like I think a lot of people, when they look at the tickets, they balk at the price a little bit, but then you realize like, holy shit, like this is really worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's, for us especially, we've talked about it too before, where it's like it's an investment. These events that we go to are full-blown investments.
Yes.
The S2 one, again, we do more work probably with them than we do by First Form by a good amount.
Yeah.
Obviously, just because we're always in the stores with the guys.
Yeah.
We're doing workouts with the guys, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we're obviously going to these expos and whatnot. Look out for a tent next year. By the way, little untapped tent next year.
We definitely plan on doing that.
That will be on the cards for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. We'll bring some cool stuff out for you guys.
Yeah.
Got some ideas from other vendors as well. Shout out them too.
Literally the next day, we were like, okay, we should have this at our tent. We should have this at our tent.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Which is so funny. And what was cool too, I mean, there was like fitness events, like I got to throw a 100-pound sandbag over and see how much I could do. Wyatt told me he did double that, and I called him out, and he said that he was actually lying about it. So, one of our guests is a big liar, Wyatt Mormon.
One of our guests and my chiropractor.
Yeah, exactly. And one of our good friends in general, is a liar. Yeah. But dude, it was just awesome. Like I think, because you were talking about how it went almost exactly how we expected.
Yeah.
I think it even blew my expectations out of the water.
For sure.
Because there was one point in time, so I was at the Health Source tent a lot of the times too, because naturally, as you guys know, I work there as well as a rehab specialist, but there was a time where I think there was 20 vendors hooked up to one outlet. They had a breaker issue. They fixed it in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I was actually all over it, dude.
I was actually inside of HQ when that happened.
That's crazy.
And I mean, there was like 3 or 4 guys working on it to get it back on.
We can think how fast. I mean, they addressed it within 2 minutes. I mean, for it being their first one, because obviously when you're at I think they had 2 previous barbecues? Was it just 2?
At least
2 previous barbecues.
One at Chesterfield, and I think the other one was at South County.
South County, yeah. And the previous 2 years, those were obviously at local stores. So it was kind of like on the local businesses that they worked with and all that stuff. So it was a little bit easier to piece it together. This was all on them.
Yeah.
And for it being the first one ever at S2, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable.
They did a great job. Hospitality was great. Service was great. The energy was great.
Mm-hmm.
It was a perfect day.
Oh,
it was literally like 70 and
right
sunny.
After the tornado.
I know, right after that.
Good way to, like add a positive note to St. Louis after that too. But my goodness,
But huge thanks to everyone that was involved with S2, and again, we have some very exciting stuff coming up. So definitely be on the lookout. Obviously, we'll keep you guys updated. And anyway, we are on our 160th episode. Good round number right there. Very good round number.
Yeah, especially for Memorial Day. Cool.
Exactly.
Really awesome holiday.
Yeah.
Holiday we should honor big time.
Definitely.
Realistically for a month, but some other things get month-long holidays. Yeah. Instead. But, we'll get into that today for sure. Yeah.
Right. But, no, we wanted to kind of just not necessarily just like give our thoughts on Memorial Day, because I think everyone kind of does that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which there's nothing wrong with that, but we're not just going to do another podcast that gives our thoughts on Memorial Day, but more so talk about the meaning behind it, and is our culture today living up to the meaning of Memorial Day and the background of Memorial Day?
I think a lot of our listeners, and also a lot of, especially St. Louis, we're noticing a lot of that. And also like on platforms like you think of X and whatnot, there's a lot more questions being asked about history too.
Sure.
And so this kind of relates to the Memorial Day thing, to where, we're questioning wars and events in history that we might not have been told the truth about, because, usually the history is written by the winner or the victor,
definitely.
As it always is, as we can all guess that. So we're asking questions about things outside of that, whether it's World War II, whether it's Civil War, whether it's even Revolutionary War and before that and whatnot. You're asking questions about all these things. And we're going to stick on, obviously, United States Memorial Day, to where it's like the men and women who have died. What did they die for? What was the ideals they imagined of the country when they went and died in these wars, or sacrificed their lives for these wars? And the ones who even came home and they're mentally or physically disabled because of the wars and whatnot too. It's the same idea. They might not have died, but also what they left a piece of themselves over there for
Right.
our country and whatnot.
Right.
And because we talk about like how a lot of times you and I talk about Middle East and how a lot of these conflicts, and not all of them, we really shouldn't have been involved in at all in any way. That does not invalidate the deaths of these soldiers.
Correct.
Because the soldiers on the front lines putting their lives on the line, they were doing it for the right reasons. What they assumed were the right reasons, obviously, in these scenarios.
They believed in the mission.
Exactly. They believed in the mission. And we're here to offer a different perspective on things, so to speak, of like, are we actually the country right now? Are we, as a daily human being, are you living the standard that these soldiers would expect out of us and what they died for? I think it's a fair question. Are you as fit of a human being as possible? Because are we as dominant of a country as possible? And not even in the way of like we should go colonize every country. Like I'm not saying that obviously, or imperialize again or whatnot. It's more just like, are you as an individual living into these standards that they expected? Are you calling out things that don't fit the standard that should be in this country? That type of thing. Are you allowing things to happen in your schools? Are you a parent and you're seeing, men go in women's bathrooms and you're just sitting there and being quiet?
Yeah.
Is that what these soldiers would have died for?
Right.
What else? List a couple other things from here that come off the top of your head.
Well, I would say like sports culture. That's one, where, it started to move away some, like
some, but is it just because the money was disappearing?
Well, that's fair.
That's
obviously a fair point, which a lot of these things come back to money, but I more so mean, you had the initial hit in the NFL with the Kaepernick stuff, right? Where it was just open,
anti-American essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it took a long time for the NFL to stop that and get rid of that, and there's still a little bit of an element at times with that, like the end racism in the end zones and stuff. And it's like, oh, you know what? I bet a guy read that on the field while he was watching the football game, and now he's not racist. Good job, NFL.
Some dude literally tweeted that, I think, the other day. He said, man, I used to be so racist, and the NFL put end racism on the end of the end zone, and now I'm not anymore.
Was it you?
It very well could have been me. Maybe I just stumbled upon one of my old tweets or something like that. Who knows? But like, dude, that's the funny thing is like, and it might have been, I think it was like a comedian Twitter guy or something like that for sure that said, I forgot who it was. Kind of want to shout him out, but anyways, doesn't matter. But I mean, you're right. Like little things like that in sports are, like, as we've talked about, are an indicator of culture.
The virtue signaling is what it is. I mean, that's all it is, which is not productive. It doesn't actually do anything. But you mentioned schools. That's a great one, actually, because if you're a parent of a child in schools that are supporting all this like LGBT stuff from teachers, or they're allowing kids to change their genders but not tell the parents, like that's a real thing that's happening in schools in certain states. If you're a dad and your child is at that school and you're silent, you are not doing your job as a father or as a man in this country. You're just not. We're obviously not in that position, so maybe some might say, well, you guys don't have children in a school that's doing that. Well, I can pretty much guarantee you if we did, we wouldn't be silent. We just wouldn't.
Yeah,
right?
Whenever we do, 100% we won't be silent.
Exactly.
There's just,
exactly.
There's no question about it.
So there's that. And on that same note, maybe that's happening at your job or at a company that you usually support, whether you buy their products, you use their services, both, whatever. If there's something you don't agree with, guess what? Stop using that company. Stop giving that company your money.
You know what's interesting that you say that, actually? Because to go on that point about the job, that's actually an interesting point about the standards of a job. Are you one of the few hardworking employees at your company? And you're not really saying anything about that. It's like, oh, you show up and do your job at the best you can, which is, by the way, awesome, great.
Sure.
But should you also be talking to leadership and seeing how you can improve the company?
Exactly.
Should you be talking about how your coworkers aren't putting in that same work?
Right.
Hey, why is this manager, coming into work and is, was drunk the night before or something like that, and now is useless this day or something like that?
Right.
That type of thing. Like, are you calling out standards at work, and are you holding coworkers accountable?
Right.
Even little things like that.
Well, are you setting the example too?
Exactly.
Don't just like talk about it to your boss or whatever, but are you also setting the example? And if you are, then you are in a position to do those things that you just mentioned. But if you're not setting the example, then you're a part of that problem. So that's one. as much as we talk about S2 and First Form, we just talked about the expo and all this, and we had a great time. As much as we talk about them, yes, we love their products. We have some tremendous people that we know extremely well at both of those companies. We have actually a lot more than what I think you and I kind of remember.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, super thankful for all of that. But also a large part of the reason that we continuously support and shout out and promote these companies is because they stand for these things that we're talking about. They stand for human interaction. That's a big one for you and I. We talk all the time about how we need human interaction and we can't let that fall away.
Mm-hmm.
We've even brought in Mitch on that type of topic with the AI and the techie side of things. Yes, it can be helpful, but if it gets rid of human interaction, we've gone way, 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 way too far, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
if you're sitting in a little cubicle like it's Wall-E or something like that, and then you're not talking to anybody else and you're just slopping down your fries from McDonald's and that's all you do, then
exactly.
No, that's not okay.
Exactly. So not only are they promoters of human interaction, you go into a store, you're going to talk to a guy for a while. You're going to be in that store for a while, especially if it's your first time. You go into an S2, you're going to be in there in a while, but they're going to try and get to know you. They're going to care about you. They're going to do what they can to help you. You call up First Form with an issue, their customer service, you are talking to a real person. You email them, you're getting a real reply back from a real person, and quick too, by the way, and they will solve your problem.
Yep.
So, and then not to mention, obviously, they stand for America. All the American values.
100%.
They have core values as a company, and they stand by those. Their employees, exemplify that. So that's also part of the reason that we continuously support these.
And
these
do
companies.
they do everything perfect? I would assume not.
Sure.
Do we know every inner working of the company? No, we don't. So I'm sure they're missing out on little aspects, but they're obviously doing a lot, and if not a majority, well.
Correct.
Really, really well.
Right. And they also do take care of us a lot because we are so supportive.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's not like, hey, we'll shout you out. We want to go, or we want this for free, or we want whatever. Like, it's just, they take care of us, and they give us opportunities. So that's an example of companies you should support because they stand for what you stand for. They exemplify what you do. And that's somewhere worth spending your money. Companies that don't do those things, you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's convenience with things like Amazon. I use Amazon. I do. It's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean it's always the right choice? Maybe not. Maybe not. It is convenient, though.
Yeah, you could argue Amazon's one of those things that could be used for things like what it's originally for, books. Obviously it was originally built as a bookstore.
Yeah, right.
You could go to Barnes & Noble too, but again, like that's also, kind of a chain as well. But also you could argue that you could go out to a place like St. Charles Main Street where they have local bookstores out there too.
Sure.
And you get places like that. So that is on the table too. But also Amazon was built as a book place. So like a lot of people get their books from Amazon because they have a huge selection. Great. Are you getting things like charging cables and like little trinkets and whatnot that you might need from there that you can't get anywhere else? Sure.
Right.
But if you can go and get something from a local store or at least a business in your local economy, that's 100% the better option to pick. And again, Mitchell and I had this conversation yesterday too about like, a company like Rogue Fitness. I bought a bunch of bands from them because I wanted to upgrade my bands because I had some shitty ones previously, as you guys both know about. But, so in that case, they're not local to St. Louis, but they're also USA made.
Yeah.
Their quality is unbeatable too when it comes to their products.
Yeah.
So like that's also a big thing as well, And is the quality of Amazon drivers or Amazon employees the best, or do they take care of their employees the best? Do they are they trying to implement a lot of robotics and whatnot? And so maybe start pulling back a little bit. Again, like Amazon, don't get me wrong. Like I think most guys with wives, I mean, even Holly uses it a good amount for a lot of stuff too. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, but it's little bit by little bit that you can pull back is the best way to do it, as we've talked about in previous local episodes too.
Yeah.
And that's, again, would these soldiers have died for you to just buy from a company that is just this big conglomerate that has so much power and they have so much, they don't pay any taxes. They don't do, they don't do anything. They don't do anything for this country at all, really, other than just like provide super easy convenience. And a lot of the times the only way for local businesses to go through some of this stuff is through Amazon.
Right.
Because these local businesses know, okay, we're going to ship in 4 to 5 days, or it's going to get to this person in 4 to 5 days. Amazon's going to get there in 1 to 2 days. How do we compete with that?
Sometimes same day.
Sometimes same day. Yeah. And like, how do we compete with that? So
Right.
so these local businesses then have to go on there as vendors through Amazon. It's like this controlled monopoly, which again, is that on our part a right-wing talking point? No, technically that would be considered mostly left-wing throughout history, but somebody like Teddy Roosevelt's a great example of that. Like the monopoly busters or whatever they called them, the trust busters, excuse me. That's what
Yeah.
the word was in history and whatnot. That's a good thing because it encourages that ethical capitalism that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's also what these soldiers died for. They didn't die for you to just have 15 companies controlled by 2 large corporations or something like BlackRock or whatever, and that's all they're owned by, and these 15 corporations is all you buy for. That's not what they died for.
Right.
You know? So
Right.
that's even 100% another avenue of this.
Yeah.
That's why we go to S2 and First Form Most We Can, because most of our purchases are fitness related.
Right.
So we go through a local company for it.
Yes.
You know? So,
exactly. And it's just also cool because they're here in St. Louis. Like, that's what they
100%.
are. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? I mean, heck, I just bought new golf clubs, and like I went into the store. We talked with a guy for like 2.5 hours,
Mhm.
and the clubs I got Ping irons, which by the way they're sick. G430s, highly recommend them. Love them.
Flex.
Yeah. But
Shout out Discover
oh yeah, right.
for the points.
But they're assembled in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona. It says it right there on the clubs, and I was looking between them and I was looking through a few different clubs, but I was also potentially going to go through a website that I'd been recommended that were cheaper, and then I found out they came from Hong Kong, and it was going to take like 6 to 12 weeks. And I'm like, and apparently some stuff on the Reddit was like, sometimes you get your clubs, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you order right-handed, you get left-handed, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, nope, I'm not willing to take that risk, number one. And number two, they're not made here. I'm going to go into a store. Yeah, I might pay a little bit more, couple hundred extra bucks, but the quality is going to be unmatched. I'm going to have them today, which that's awesome. And they're made here, So it's like maybe they get parts from elsewhere, like overseas.
Who knows?
But they are assembled and shipped from here, and they're based here as well in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where Ping is based out of. So that was also just like a cool. I'm like, yeah, 100%. I'm sold. And now I'm actually on the tour because I had new clubs. Yeah.
You were within range of Scotty this weekend, weren't you?
I was. Yeah.
Quail Hollow looked like a super easy course, anyways.
Well,
but yeah,
when you have brand new Ping irons, it is super easy. I mean,
that course looked brutal.
it did. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. I had a point. I don't remember where I was going.
Yeah, it's okay.
Go ahead, take it.
But see, this is why it's beneficial to have a co-host on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, because I do this too, and then Wurtz takes over.
Can you imagine being by yourself, like being by yourself,
and,
and
like,
then you just forget? And there's just like a 30-second pause of like nothing.
Yep. Well, and again,
Yes.
like what topic are we going on here? That we're talking about these soldiers and what they died for. They died for the American aspect of things. That's again, like that's one of the things that I think you and I were really happy about with again, there's a lot of things we aren't happy with right now about the Trump administration and whatnot, for sure. There are plenty of things, but one big thing I'm a huge fan of is the tariff aspect and how he stands up to these countries that have been screwing us for years now.
Sure.
And it's also really interesting to hear how he was the first president I've ever heard say that most of our income, all of our income before 1910 or right at 1900, I believe, somewhere right around that range, 1900 and 1910, all of our income before that was tariff based. We had no income tax. We had no tax, anything like that. It was all of our money we brought in as a country was from tariffs on countries, on products, goods and services, etc. That was, again, that's a crazy thing to hear. Like from a president, it's like, okay, that sounds very America first, know? And again, you saw China came to the table because like 19 million workers or whatever it was were put out of business over there in China because the tariffs were screwing them over way more. We were all worried about, our prices are going to go up a couple dollars here, which shows again that early gratification or quick gratification of things, of how Americans have kind of fallen into that too.
Sure.
We as consumers, but also just citizens of this country need to be able to have a little patience too.
Yes.
Have a little patience sometimes. And lo and behold, now we're both at 10% on tariffs for each other, China and the U.S. to each other, because he brought Z to the table and said, here's the deal. Let's make this work, And again, it's little things like that. And anybody that would argue that we should have all of our manufacturing over in India and China and basically cheap slave labor countries, that's also a weirdly like immoral thing to say.
Yes.
Too. Like it's kind of weird if you're advocating for that because these workers get paid pennies on the dollar over there too. And it's like they just live in squalor and that's it. And you're supporting that.
Right.
Why wouldn't we want our manufacturing to come back here? Okay. A couple extra dollars for a little bit of time on certain things and whatnot. Fine.
Also, though, the quality of the product will be better.
Is every U.S. company you buy from, it to be the best quality.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're shitty U.S. companies. But the point is, like, of I was talking about Roe. We were talking about Ping.
Yeah.
Like those type of companies, like they produce phenomenal products.
Right.
Phenomenal products.
And Mitch, you might be able to speak to this a little bit more. Like there are probably international, or not international, but there are probably other countries like with tech stuff that might be ahead of America. Would that be correct?
Oh, by far and away. Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you
Yep.
go.
Yeah, I mean, China, you can have head tracking drones where you like look around and the drones follow your head and stuff like that.
Which is pretty cool.
What I think is interesting is the U.S. locks up a lot of this cool technology behind the military industrial complex because
Good point.
the U.S. Department of Defense is like top 3 largest employers in the world. I think there's like 3 million people who work for
Our contract for them,
yeah,
counting contractors.
who work for the. I mean, it's nuts. But most countries don't really have. They're not as secretive as the U.S. So you have some really cool tech that comes out of China. You have some really cool tech that comes out of Japan. Just seems like these countries are more advanced in the general public because they're just more open about it. I don't necessarily understand that reasoning fully. It seems like the U.S. holds back a lot in terms of that.
Well, and it seems like those types of countries are more willing to do those types of things too for their citizens. Like in Japan, don't they have the bullet trains?
Oh,
they
yeah.
go like
a
a zillion miles an hour.
One of our listeners actually was just in Japan too, and he was talking about that and how like well kept everything was, how clean it was, that type of stuff. You know, which could lead you to a few other conversations, as we all know here too. But like, you know, like. No clue. I'm talking about
lost on that one. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
I mean,
no
heck, on that exact point, I was probably like 12, and we were in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, pristine.
Yep.
Everything there was not litter everywhere.
It's the same thing you hear about Poland. Like Poland's a great like,
Singapore.
Yeah, anybody that you hear that goes to Poland or Singapore or something like that, like these countries are in phenomenal shape because. They do things that might look harsh, like in Singapore, like they obviously like cane citizens in the middle of the street if they do it, which means they don't have crime there at all. You know, and so they do harsher things that maybe look like they're authoritarian, but it's actually for the best of their citizens in a lot of ways too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to be very nuanced with government in general too, with all that stuff. But Mitchell's right about the technology being kind of hidden a lot of the times as well, and I don't know if that's they think it's strategic to do that. But it doesn't seem strategic when China's just releasing all this stuff. I mean, it was the AI company. I forgot what it was called. DeepSeek, I think it was called.
Oh, yeah.
That was created for $6 million over in China.
Yeah.
And then ours are having like billions of dollars of investment right now. So they're doing it for pennies on the dollar. You know, for those of you on video, seeing the quotations there, pennies on the dollar compared to what we're doing it for, just because like they have like open access to this stuff.
Right.
You know, this technology, because hypothetically, you put your citizens ahead in that way too, which could be a conversation about AI for the U.S. citizens and how we should release it, but also regulate it at the same time. It's similar like with NIL. You can't just like go full on and just not regulate it. You know, similar conversation with AI to where regulate it, but release it too, you know, at the same time so we can really grow as a country too and do it in the proper manner. But yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is like that's, again, these guys, these soldiers that died, they didn't die for you to have your government hide information from you, for your government to hide resources that can make your life better from you and stuff like that. They didn't die for classified files on 9/11, Epstein files, everything, JFK files. They didn't die for all that stuff. They died for transparency, which is a big thing on what the U.S. was founded upon too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big factor. I mean, our founding fathers spoke heavily about that because they came from. Now, again, like they came from the British monarchy, which the British monarch at the time was, in their eyes, a tyrant, which is fair because we were colonies and not as part of the British state at the time. So we're getting screwed over, you know? So they wanted a open, transparent, but small government that was effective as well, you know?
And now what do we have? Zero transparency in a
exactly.
massive government.
Exactly. And that's what you come back to too, is like the original Constitution. Is this really what the country resembles nowadays?
Right.
You know, that's where you really come into question, is like most of these soldiers, I would imagine, died for the ideal of what you would imagine America is. You know, America was founded as a people, as a set of beautiful ideals that came along with what we brought over from Britain, from European countries, from whoever it was.
Christianity.
Christianity, the values that came along with that. So, and that's what originally what the Constitution was based on, a lot of those values. And, again, we've had people argue on our reels or our TikToks and say that that's not true. But again, those people are all low IQ. Anybody that disagrees with us is low IQ, of course. No dissenters here. But it's like, I imagine, like, if I'm going to a Middle Eastern war, or if I'm going over to fight in some World War II or World War I, these guys have an ideal that they are going to spread freedom and the values of the United States. That's the idea of it.
Right.
And it turns out a lot of these wars were either for the wrong reason or for some resource acquisition. In the case of a lot of the Middle Eastern wars with oil and stuff like that, the weapons of mass destruction was all a lie with that stuff when it came over to going into Iraq with Saddam and all them too. Omar Gaddafi over in Libya, same thing. We killed him because he didn't. Our government thought that they couldn't control him. So we wanted to put him down, that type of thing, and that is not what our soldiers died for, and we know that.
Even look at a guy like Edward Snowden.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this
An
guy,
American patriot. Yeah.
This guy is trying to get transparency out there. I guess would be the correct way to say it.
Expose what the NSA and these organizations were doing as part of our bureaucracy. Yeah.
And they extradited him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he had to hide out. Is he still hiding out in Russia, Mitchell? Is that true? Yeah. Okay.
I think he has Russian citizenship now. He's been there so long.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just like.
And the sad part is you see what Moscow and St. Petersburg looks like. It looks like a paradise right now. And, I've never been over to Russia, so I can't comment on that necessarily, but it seems like they're in pretty good shape. And they are big on Eastern Orthodoxy and Christianity and that type. I mean, they seem to be doing okay.
Right.
Even though we hear that Putin's this murderer and whatnot, and that's all he does. And, it's just, it's disappointing because that's not what they died for. So, like, one, speaking out on our end of things, and that is patriotic as well, to honor these soldiers, speaking out on these things, speaking out on things like mass immigration and just letting in whoever, and not assimilating immigrants because we were never built on the fact of just let everybody in. That's just not what we were ever built on in America.
I don't think any country has ever been built on
and
that.
It's never been successful. Every country that's happened, they've just let everybody in. Roman Empire has crumbled.
Right.
Has completely crumbled. Babylon's a great example of that happened too. All of the degeneracy, all this stuff. Weimar Germany is another great example of it. All these things that these empires, so to speak, that crumbled were because of these values that they let in, and all leads back to now. Or lack thereof of values, 100% lack thereof of Christianity and whatnot, because you want to keep religion and state separate, that type of thing. That's that idea of it. But, because, and immigration's another aspect of it as well, to where, again, we were built on the best and brightest and the most productive. And even with Ellis Island, they were bringing in the best of the best as much as they could. They were vetting them. They had them actually going through customs and had them going through checks on if they were physically fit, if they were whatever it was to get into the country and be an asset to the country. That was a big deal of what we allowed in at that time. Is that what we do now? And we all know what we're talking about. We all daily in St. Louis and anywhere else around the country, other than probably rural areas, maybe you see that there's so many immigrants that haven't been assimilated. They just don't understand the values of the country in a lot of ways. And that could go for any immigrant, that hasn't been assimilated, because come over to this country. I mean, there was a lady that was deported down in Florida. She still couldn't speak English. She'd been here for 20 years. 20 years she was an illegal immigrant and still couldn't speak English the whole time.
That's a choice at that point.
100% it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now, look, this is always the question about mass immigration, is that it only happens in white Christian countries. That's what is really weird about it. It never is allowed in a Middle Eastern country. It is never allowed in a South American country. Never allowed in an Asian country. None of it. It's not allowed in Africa. It never happens.
Right.
It just doesn't. If I was to move to a place like Mexico, I would learn their customs and Spanish like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
Because I'm deciding to move there and change my life there.
Right.
So if you come here to America, you have to learn English and you have to learn every bit of our customs like the back of your hand, even more than most American citizens know.
And live that way.
Yes. 100%. And that's the challenging part about it, because everybody's like, well, the immigration process legal immigration is so slow. That's why there's so many illegal immigrants. Like that doesn't set aside the fact that you can't just waltz into a country and then just live here and work here and send money back to your own country or whatever.
It's like saying, oh, fitness is hard and it takes time. That's why there's so many fat people.
That's a great comparison. It's a great comparison.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because obesity is another thing that we're failing on in this country big time.
Big time.
That our soldiers didn't die for this. Our soldiers didn't die for us to be the most metabolically unhealthy country of all time.
Right.
I mean, I don't think they went over there and like, I'm doing this so people can
for the fat people
for McDonald's like that. They didn't go over there and fight wars for that or into other countries. They were going to fight Germany and saying like, man, this is all for those burgers. It's all for the fast food. That's freedom right there. That's what it is. Yep. It's for this tub of lard back home watching sports and then has a job that is 20 hours a week and then gets government welfare the rest of the time. That's what I'm dying for.
Hell yeah.
That's what I'm dying for right
America,
there.
baby. But bro, you look around a little bit and that's what it looks like.
100% it does.
It's crazy. It's unbelievable. And it's such a dishonoring of them.
It's exactly what it is.
And it's disrespectful.
It's beyond disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again, we could even talk about addressing that with men too, to where like most men aren't even open to the idea of something like testosterone and whatnot.
Correct.
And realizing how like metabolically unhealthy they are, and that also affects your hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And you then you think you're just taking steroids, and they just write it off as that, and they don't even get their blood work properly done. Correct. They just go to their local large hospital or whatever, and they just assume that their blood work covers everything. It's like, that doesn't tell you hardly anything.
Right.
And then they'll tell you your normal range, like John was talking about, is like 300.
Right.
And it's like, I wonder why you feel like shit.
Yeah,
and you won't
exactly.
even address that. Anybody that talks about health, you won't even listen to them.
Right.
You won't even listen to them about how important it is, even though, desk jobs, sedentary. It's very easy to be sedentary nowadays, very easy to sit on your phone. But it's a choice now and a duty for you to do the opposite of that.
Right.
It's a choice for you to speak out against things like mass immigration. It's a choice for you to speak out about the values of America and what this country was founded upon in 1776.
Mm-hmm.
It's a choice for you to speak out on that type of stuff. And it's the right thing. It's the duty.
Yeah. Even though it's hard.
It's 100% hard.
All the things that you just said, they're hard to do.
And it's like, well, my company won't allow me to do that or whatnot. Well, you need to look for a different company.
Yeah, exactly.
One aspect of it. Two, your balls need to drop.
Yeah.
Because like, that's not something like, is that what you're going to leave your kids a legacy on?
Right.
Daddy was too scared to say something.
Right.
That seems a little gay to me.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like,
right.
Like pull it out a little bit. Like, my goodness, dude,
yeah.
It's so
untuck it.
I mean, straight up though. I mean, if we're being really honest there, like
that's another thing these guys didn't die for. These men and women didn't die for your son's balls to be cut off when he's 7.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to play with Barbie one time.
Right.
Oh, he's a girl.
Yeah. Or your daughter wanted to play in the mud
one time
and wear camo.
Holly grew up going hunting. She's not a tranny.
Yeah.
Not the last time I checked, at least. Yeah.
That'd be crazy. Shout out Holly.
Yeah, shout out Holly. Shout out the wife. Shout out the wife. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It infuriates you because of the fact that like you have to look at things like this, and I think most men are okay with sitting back and being very apathetic about these things because it's the easy choice to do. You have to choose the hard route of things of speaking out against things that you should be speaking out against, and then also physically doing hard things because it is your duty. It's like that's the thing. We talked about that episode. It was our first YouTube exclusive. If you go back and listen to it, guys, it was Legacy Matters or whatever it was called. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we literally talked about legacy and how important it is. And you should be thinking outside of just the 80 years you're here on earth. And that's it.
Correct.
You should be thinking about your previous family and then your family to come and your legacy to come after that too.
Yeah.
And what they will experience with this as well.
Right.
Radicalize yourself a little bit, because radicalizing yourself nowadays is just being normal.
Basically.
It's literally just being normal as a man.
Right.
That's what it is. Like throughout the first thousands of years we were here and whatnot, it was just being a normal man. It was leading your household. It was speaking out against degeneracy and moral degeneracy. It was speaking out against random foreigners being in your country for no good reason or something like that. It was things like that.
Being fit.
I mean, all of these guys essentially, like, I mean, Sparta's a great example of it, but the Greeks had weird things for sure. But they got things right. Like, for example, Sparta was literally basically required. You had to be jacked essentially and militarily ready at all times. And they're known for that.
Right.
But again, they fell as well because they extended themselves. They let degeneracy in. They would let foreigners into their military and whatnot. So they had the same problems we did. So successful countries throughout history, look at what men did in those countries and do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it.
And then look at where we are currently and ask yourself, is that the same thing?
Exactly.
Because it's very clearly not.
Yep.
It's very clearly not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another part to what you were saying is also don't be afraid to ask questions on history, on what you see on the news, what the government is saying. Because people not only are people afraid to speak out against these things like we're doing right now. I think COVID woke up a lot of people.
More,
yes. And it certainly was like the first big thing in our lifetime where it's like, wait, hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
At first,
again, we were 2 years old with 9/11 happened.
Exactly.
3 years old or whatever it was. Yeah.
Right.
For example.
So we don't remember that, and it didn't have the profound effect on us as it did our parents' generation. Mm-hmm. But COVID certainly is something in our lifetime where it's like, wait, hold on a second. This doesn't really add up. A lot of things actually don't really add up. Mm-hmm. And this guy's saying this, but then a couple months later, he's saying this, which completely contradicts what he said back here, blah, 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 blah. So that's what really got you and I in the realm of asking questions. And then we started to kind of look into things from the past. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what really happened here? Is it what they say or is it not? Mm-hmm. Like let's ask the question, let's dig into it a little bit, and let's try to find objective sources to give us those answers, mm-hmm. And so people are really scared to do that because if you find things about COVID where it's like, hey, COVID was this whole like psyop thing, and it's like, but if I say this to my buddy, like, is he gonna think I'm crazy? So what?
Who cares?
So what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of the mindset that you and I have had with a lot of these like breaking news type episodes that we've done, because a lot of them revolve around conspiracy theories, the big scary words. But it's like, how much of it is really theory?
That's a great question.
Because what if we're right?
And again, also, how much is really theory? There's another thing that came out where there's articles now being published that the FDA is apparently not recommending most vaccine boosters for COVID for most Americans.
How crazy.
Check that on the Untapped podcast was right counter again.
A lot of receipts there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check that on we were right. Mitchell and I were right before COVID because again, we hadn't reconnected at that point in time, but Mitchell and I were right in February of 2020 that we shouldn't lock down the country for this.
Yeah.
And we told our friends this, they thought we were crazy.
When in history has that ever happened, by the way?
Never. You quarantine sick. It's how it goes. And again, like it's the men not being men. That's
Correct.
What it is.
Correct.
Every successful country, what did men do in those countries? Do that. Okay. They definitely didn't let the government tell them to stay inside for 2 months, and definitely didn't let the government tell them to wear a mask and think it's this little piece of cloth is going to protect you from microparticles that are going through it.
Yeah.
That definitely isn't what I would consider a masculine trait.
Correct.
You agreeing with wearing a mask.
Correct.
I definitely wouldn't consider that along the lines of what men did in successful societies before that.
Right.
If the government told them something that insane, they told them to get fucked.
Yeah.
That's what they said to them.
Right. Take 2 of these. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Take 2 of these, eat those down, and then leave.
Right.
Yeah. Then you're gone.
Yeah.
Or in the case of, you want to put text on our tea? Okay, we're going to cut your heads off.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the port in the harbor.
But it definitely wasn't.
Yes, sir.
Put a mask on. Yes, daddy. It definitely wasn't that.
Yeah, exactly.
It definitely wasn't that. And again, that radicalized you and I even more so past COVID. Because I think there are some people we've talked to that are still kind of on COVID, and that's all they were radicalized on. Yeah. And it's like, dude, like there's trust me.
There's a lot more.
Trust me, there's a lot more.
That's the icing on the cake. This is like 100-layer cake. You need to start eating. You see working the way down the rabbit hole. Yes.
Day by day a little bit because you got some work to do, buddy.
Get your shovel out, start digging.
It's not just the vaccine, buddy.
Right.
It's not just mask.
Right.
It's much more than that.
There's a particular country that starts with an I and ends with an L that's involved in a lot.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Them and then everything else before that too.
Which, shout out new Pope. We are God's chosen people.
Pope Leo. What a Chad.
Yeah.
And Cardinal Reina.
Yeah.
We appointed.
Oh, yeah. Except Pope Leo is a Chicago White Sox fan. Not really sure how to feel about that.
Well,
it's better than a Cubs
I was
fan.
going to say,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Miles better.
Again,
than
if you
a
grew
Cubs
up in Chicago, at least you pick the White Sox. You know
Correct.
what I mean? Yeah, so I'll take that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool to have an American Pope, too.
It is.
Pretty big flex.
First one ever.
First one, I think first one ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
100%.
like kind of crazy to think about. But yeah.
100%, dude.
So
We should be in the right direction there. But
Correct. Correct. All right, guys. Well, that is episode 160. As usual, we get a little off track, but it all surrounds around the topic.
Mhm.
It does. So that's episode 160. Again, happy Memorial Day. And at the end of all of our non-guest episodes, Money Mitch will ask us a Q&A question that's submitted by you guys, the listeners or the viewers. Now, we have a few different ways that we would like you to submit these questions. First, you can not email. That's not number one. You can DM them to us on Instagram at untapped.llp. You can also DM them to us individually, or you can text them to us if you have our numbers. Next, you can email them to us. Our email is extricationfitness@gmail.com. It's a mouthful, we know, so we made it easy. There's an email button in our Instagram bio and our Facebook bio. So just click that. It'll take you right to your email, and then you can send it that way. Finally, you can leave them in the comments of any of our social media posts. We are on everything: Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube. We post shorts. We also have all these podcast episodes on YouTube. So if you are a usual listener, go check us out. Terrible arrangement of words there.
Yeah.
Go check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. That helps us out a lot more than what you think. It's also free to do. But you can...
Especially on YouTube.
Yes.
Let me just say that, especially on YouTube.
Yes.
Yep.
But you can leave your questions in the comments of any of those places, okay? All of these questions get sent over to Money Mitch. He will pick one out that pertains to the topic of the episode. It might go with a past episode. It could just be a random question. It could be a funny question. It could be a health-related question, supplements, whatever. Guys, submit these questions. He will pick one out, and then he will ask us here at the end, again, of our non-guest episodes. All that being said, Money Mitch, what's up?
None much. What's up with you?
Well, it looked like he was about to start breaking out laughing there for a second.
I was holding it in. So, are there things you can do in life to reframe these small decisions into a way to have larger impact in your future? What are the ways you can kind of reframe your daily routine actions to maybe make more of a lasting difference?
What type of small decision? Give one or two.
Everything. I mean, the way you get up, the way you talk to people, the way you act at your job. I mean, can you reframe these things to encourage lasting, better change for your life?
Like buying American toilet paper?
I mean, sure, if you wanted to.
Probably the best toilet paper you've ever wiped your ass with, honestly.
Probably.
If we're being really honest.
Yeah. Or get dude wipes. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Until
I
calling a
clawed
plumber constantly, yeah.
until the plumber's coming to the crib.
That's
You're spending $500 for labor. And,
that's
and
called,
a quick
that's
and
called
flush the toilet for
that's
you.
called investing in America right there. I clog my toilet, he fixes it. A month later, I'm calling him again. That's how it's going. Is that how it works for us? Huh?
Sir, have you ever checked your bowel movements for? Like, I really don't want to keep showing up here every month.
This is disgusting. You just have a plumber on retainer.
You pay a subscription.
He has billable hours he sends you.
It's a subscription model. You pay $400 every month.
The subscription model's got me dying.
$4,800 a year.
That's a new business model right there.
It is. We just gave out free game to any blue collar guys right there.
People do it for landscaping, like for grass cutting and stuff.
Plumify.
Bro, he can't help himself with the Shopify, the Spotify, the Strokeify, all of it.
Plumify. That's my new business model. It's a subscription based plumber model.
There's not much more American than that. I can tell you that.
That's right.
Subscription-based plumber.
That's right.
Oh,
man.
Shout out our blue collar guys. Shout
That's
out our
right.
blue collar guys. My goodness.
Going back to the question here, you guys probably know that we were going to hit on fitness at some point with this question, but like obviously getting to the gym on a consistent basis, getting activity, getting in exercise, getting movement in on a regular basis. Yeah. Like that's a tremendous way to do
being
this.
extremely intentional with it too, as much as you can. Especially early on, that's going to be hard. Like to anybody that has gotten into fitness, you know how hard it is early on to be intentional with it.
Sure.
But that is 100% a daily habit, that the more intentional you are, the more it's like, okay, today I went hard yesterday. I'm going to go for a light walk or a light run today. Okay. I'm doing that purposely. The next day, now I'm recovered. I got good sleep. I can be dedicated about that and getting good sleep, whatever it is. I like to mouth tape, which is kind of like the weird fitness trend nowadays, but it does seem to help me that I don't snore when I do it, that type of stuff. But little things like that, getting good sleep, and then going into the next day, you're able to lift more weight in the gym. You're able to be more intentional. That it's the idea of, again, we go back to before the episode where men being men, like the barbell is 100% a way to go back to being what your ancestral men were like in a lot of ways too.
Sure.
It's very, and not just the barbell, but the gym in general, of course. But yeah, fitness habits are great for that. What else were you going to go with there?
I don't know, because there's plenty of things.
Yeah.
I think I like the word intentional here. I think being intentional with how you go about your day. Mitch, you mentioned the way you wake up. Well, that might sound a little silly, but wake up, make your bed, brush your teeth, prepare yourself the night before. That's a great one. So these little things, and you guys might be wondering, it's like, well, how does that impact outward? But if you're intentional with those tiny little things, like making your bed, brushing your teeth, setting your clothes out the night before, things like that. If you're intentional with those things, you're going to be intentional elsewhere, whether that's your job, the people that are around you, your friends, your family, those types of things, which that will have a tremendous impact, So I like the be intentional with each and every little thing you're doing. Now, I know the question was specific examples, Mitch. Is that right? Specific examples. And maybe this is more of a general answer, but I think being intentional with even the smallest parts of your day, and if you continue to stack those little tiny things, well, a little stack here, as you grow that little stack, before you know it, you've got a big old stack.
It's that power list idea Andy talks
about.
Well,
sure,
too.
Yeah, of course. It's a great idea.
That's just one piece, because obviously it only has 5 things on it, so like you won't cover every little daily habit, of course, on there.
But you could, maybe let's say you are using the power list, like you just said, it's 5 things. Well, yeah, maybe you write down 5 things, but maybe those 5 things do cover your whole day. Not just in the tasks themselves, but in the work that you're doing in those 5 tasks, the things you're doing within those 5 tasks. Well, what's the ripple effect of those? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's really good. Because along the lines of intentional, you could talk about addressing weak points. My weak point is 100% that wake up in the morning. I'm always just like, I'll wake up and I'm like, damn, I don't want to be up.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, why am I up at 5 a.m. right now? It's annoying.
Yeah.
Before a client or something like that. But I'm also like, why am I up? There's a reason why I'm up. Like, it's a good thing why I'm up. And, I can tell a difference when the mornings where I'm intentional. I don't just, the night before, I'm always good about setting things out, having it ready the night before, like my bags, all that stuff that I need to have. So I do that well. But the morning, I can always tell if I'm more intentional about actually getting up, going out of my room, taking a drink of water, that type of stuff. And I can start like looking at my stuff, start waking myself up a little bit, splashing the cold water. Always, I can tell my sessions are better in the morning with my clients right after that.
Yeah.
But the mornings I don't do that well. And I'm just kind of like, oh, got to get up, rush out the door, grab my stuff, then leave. Always, I'm like, okay, like I regret this.
Yeah.
But now I can make up throughout the day too, because those are my strong points, And as you know, I think both you know this, I've gotten much better at the morning aspect of things in the last 2 years to 3 years, especially. Before that, I was just horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
And part of that was also addressing my testosterone in a lot of ways too with Summit. And like, that's a free ad, but it's true.
Yeah.
A big part of that was like get an idea like, oh wait, I actually do have low testosterone, and that it could be really playing a factor in what I'm dealing with. Yeah. And going on in clomiphene has 100% given me a little extra edge with that. Hasn't turned me into Superman, as I've talked about, but it's been helpful. So the weak points aspect is important. Like, what daily habits am I weak on? Do I make my bed enough? Okay, I could say like I don't make it enough on my end of things. That's a weak point for me, so I need to hit on that more. Weak point in the evening. Do I, before I sit on the phone or before I watch a YouTube video or something, do I get work done? Do I get some programming done? Do I go look at tax advantages or something like that for both my in-person training and our stuff? And then I can do that stuff. Okay, maybe I could be better there too.
Yeah.
So it's weak points with these daily habits you got to address along, and that's being intentional too.
Sure.
By addressing those weak points as well.
Yeah.
So I And that all again comes into it. Like you're never going to be perfect with these things. Like you and I don't get up and we're not just perfect from 5 a.m. all the way till 10 p.m. when we go to bed. Like that's as we talk about, you're never going to be a perfect man, but you 100% can like slowly throughout the years. I know for sure myself now compared to 2 years ago is way better than compared now. I'm way better than I was 2 years ago. I know that for sure. Again, I'm not perfect and I'm far from it. And I will never claim that. That's why I never talk about being perfect as a Christian or something like that. Cause it's just not a thing. Like any Christian that tells you they have it all figured out is usually a heretic. That's usually what it is. So yeah, it's addressing these little things. Yeah,
definitely. All right, guys. Again, that is episode 160. Please continue sharing the show. It is free. It is easy. And it helps us tremendously. So share it to your Instagram stories, Facebook stories, Spotify, Apple Music. Make it extremely easy to do that in just a few clicks. If you are a YouTube viewer, take a picture of your screen, take a screenshot of your screen, post that to your story. Again, it's free and it helps us out a ton.
Yeah.
So please continue sharing the show, showing that love.
I also talked to, real quick, Project Lean Nation, JD Dorner. He's a big sharer of the show too. And I told him, I'm like, whatever that happens with Reels, everything does way better.
Oh,
like
yeah.
We have a huge boost in listens. We have a huge boost in watches, all this type of stuff, guys. So really, it doesn't go unnoticed.
Absolutely.
Like I very much so. We both thanked him right up front whenever we were talking to him at that as well. Let's shout out Project Lean Nation for that. But
Right. So, guys, until next time, peace and love.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Time, I'm a liver. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Anything we're doing is a tough time.